Welcome back to the deep dive. If you're here with us, it means you're looking for that deeper understanding. You want the roadmap, the insights, the strategies that actually work. You're looking for that shortcut to really knowing your stuff. And that's exactly what we're doing today. We're diving into what our sources are calling the Menopause Renaissance. And look, this isn't just another chat about symptoms, it's a really detailed look at systemic change. The material we've gathered, it's like a blueprint for rebuilding your system, going way beyond just managing symptoms. We're taking those subjective experiences, the anxiety, the hot flashes, that brain fog, and turning them into objective, actionable strategies, things you can actually measure and start using like right now.
That's exactly it. It's about resilience, right? Building deep structural support, not just grabbing for quick fixes. For anyone going through perimenopause or menopause, this is, well, it's pretty crucial because we're tackling the systemic inputs that often get overlooked if you're only focused on HRT or, single supplements. We're going to show you, based on some really solid science, why stress, gut health, and your hormones are completely intertwined. You just can't separate them.
Absolutely. Think of this deep dive as maybe a masterclass in re-engineering your internal landscape. We've broken down this Renaissance idea into 3 core pillars, and these line up really well with the big health optimization trends we're seeing for 2025, 2026. So, Pillar 1 tackles the external stuff. It's about reclaiming your nervous system through what we're calling the digital detox imperative. Then, Pillar 2 turns inward, rebuilding your internal environment with a microbiome makeover. That means really getting a handle on the estrobolome, your forgotten estrogen organ, as we're framing it.
In the third pillar, that brings in the objective data, using wearable tech, specifically heart rate variability, or HRV, making HRV your personal real-time health dashboard. And the big goal, the thread connecting all 3, it's about shifting your body out of that constant, graining fight-or-flight state and getting it firmly into rest and digest mode. That parasympathetic dominance, that's where the real healing and hormonal stability happens.
Okay, so if this kind of focused, synthesized information, this deep dive approach that keeps your knowledge cutting edge is valuable to you, please hit that subscribe or follow button right now. We do these deep dives regularly, and honestly, you won't want to miss what's coming next. All right. Let's unpack these systems, starting with maybe the biggest external challenge for many, that blue light. Okay, let's unpack this first step. And yeah, for a lot of us, subtraction is the hardest part, isn't it? Pillar 1 means we have to really look at the impact of our environment, this hyper-connected world. Our sources call it the blue light onslaught. We need to understand why that fantasy of escaping to a Tuscan meadow with no Wi-Fi, why that's not just a dream. It's actually a strategic necessity for hormone health right now.
It absolutely is strategic. I mean, look, we depend on our devices, right? Phones, tablets, laptops. They connect us, they simplify things, manage our lives. But the research we've looked at is really clear. That constant digital engagement, it actively undermines hormonal harmony, especially during this delicate phase of perimenopause and menopause.
But why is it so hostile right now? When you say it sabotages harmony, what's the actual physiological link? What makes the difference between handling stress okay at, say, 35 and really struggling at 50?
Well, what's fascinating and kind of alarming is how the body's response changes when your endocrine system is already under stress from declining estrogen. Chronic digital overload, just being on all the time, is a major driver, maybe the primary driver for many, of constantly elevated stress hormone, cortisol. And we're not talking about, the acute stress of a near miss in traffic. This is that low-grade, constant stress from notifications, endless scrolling, and especially blue light exposure late into the night.
Right. And you mentioned this cascade effect of chronic cortisol being brutal. How does that specifically hit the remaining hormone production during perimenopause, when the ovaries are winding down?
That's a really critical point.
Yeah.
High cortisol demands resources. It pushes your adrenal glands into overdrive. And remember, your adrenals are already trying to pick up some of the slack as ovarian function declines.
Yeah.
So this can actually divert a crucial precursor hormone, pregnenolone. Instead of being used to make progesterone or estrogens, it gets shunted over to make more cortisol. It's sometimes called pregnenolone steal.
Oh.
Yeah, it basically worsens the deficiency you're already dealing with. Makes symptoms like mood swings, anxiety worse. Digital stress becomes this really powerful antagonist, effectively draining your hormonal reserves.
And the most insidious part, according to what we read, is this melatonin suppression vicious cycle. It just feeds that cortisol loop, right?
That cycle is the absolute linchpin. It's key to understanding the nervous system dysregulation. Blue light, specifically that short wavelength light from screens, directly suppresses melatonin production. And melatonin isn't just the sleep hormone. It's a powerful antioxidant, crucial for nervous system repair. Now, add that women in menopause are often already struggling with sleep night sweats, anxiety, fluctuating progesterone.
Often the first signs, yeah.
Exactly. So when sleep is poor, what happens? Cortisol naturally goes up the next day, which then messes with blood sugar, mood stability.
And then feeling tired, foggy, anxious from that high cortisol. What's the first instinct? Reach for the phone. For distraction, maybe a quick dopamine hit, or maybe more coffee,
Right.
which just reinforces that stressed out sympathetic state and ruins sleep later that night. It's literally a feedback loop. The device itself undermines recovery.
Precisely. And this is why breaking that cycle takes what the sources call self-sovereignty. It means setting up some real non-negotiable boundaries, sacred boundaries even.
Okay, so this is where the digital sunset protocol comes in. And again, this isn't about ditching technology completely, it's about using time boundaries strategically. Purposefully shifting the nervous system out of that high alert sympathetic state and into the parasympathetic rest and digest mode. That shift is the absolute prerequisite for hormonal healing.
And the specific rituals that the research lays out, they're very actionable, things you can do tonight.
First up, the 90-minute rule. Screens off, completely dark, 90 minutes before you actually intend to be asleep. And the replacement activity, it needs to be physical, calming. The sources suggest things like sipping red clover tea, which has those helpful phytoestrogens, reading an actual physical book, not an e-reader, or maybe doing some journaling. Okay, on the journaling, the sources mention using a weekly wheel template. Let's get specific. What is that? How can someone use it right away?
Right, the weekly wheel. It's basically a structured way to track more than just, I had a hot flash. You visually map things out across the week. Symptom severity, sure, but also sleep quality, duration, interruptions. You track your HRV readings if you have them, what you ate. By putting all these inputs together visually, you create this objective feedback loop for yourself. And doing it with pen and paper 90 minutes before bed. That act itself signals to your brain, okay, the day is winding down. It helps you spot patterns. It's therapeutic.
That 90-minute buffer makes sense. It's the time needed for your own melatonin production to really ramp up without that blue light interference, leading to deeper, more restorative sleep, which directly helps lower that morning cortisol.
Then there's the morning anchor. This is all about resisting that powerful urge to grab the phone first thing.
Yeah.
Because that immediate flood of pings, emails, news,
Yeah.
it just activates the threat response in your brain before you're even fully awake.
So instead, the recommendation is simple but profound. Step outside. Get 10 minutes of natural morning light. This acts as an incredibly powerful anchor for your circadian rhythm. It helps set the internal clock for releasing cortisol at the right time and melatonin later at the right time. It regulates that whole daily hormonal cascade.
And the final piece is achieving notification nirvana. Think about it. If your nervous system is constantly jumping in reaction to every single ping, buzz, email alert, it never truly rests. You have to turn off all non-essential notifications, all of them. Maybe create specific tech check times, say 3 times a day, so you're in control, not reacting constantly. Save that mental energy.
It's interesting, though, the benefits seem to go way beyond just feeling calmer. You mentioned some surprising systemic effects found in the research.
Yeah, quite surprising.
Yeah.
A 2024 study looked at women participating in a World Digital Detox Day initiative. They found measurable positive impacts on musculoskeletal health in the menopausal women. Less joint pain, less muscle stiffness.
Really?
Well, the thinking is, if chronic cortisol drives systemic inflammation, which we know it does, then reducing that cortisol load through sustained digital detox might actually lower that inflammation throughout the body. It points to how deep these stress effects go, addressing the root cause.
So managing that external digital environment creates the quiet space needed internally for the next pillar, the gut, to really do its essential work. Okay, so if the digital world is the external environment we need to manage, the gut is the core internal one. And this is where the science gets really interesting. And honestly, it demands our attention. For so long, hormone health and digestion were treated like separate issues. But the evidence now, it's overwhelming. Your gut microbiome is absolutely central, non-negotiable, critical to navigating menopause well.
It truly is, and we need to properly define and really explore this concept of the estrobolome. That term refers to the specific community of gut bacteria and the really complex two-way relationship between these microbes and your circulating estrogen levels. It's like an independent regulatory system your body relies on.
How does that actually work? Like on a molecular level, this sounds like more than just digestion speed.
It's all about hormonal recycling. So during your reproductive years, and ideally afterwards too, a healthy, diverse gut microbiome produces a specific enzyme. It's called beta-glucuronidase.
Okay, let's pause there. Beta beta-glucuronidase. Define that clearly for us. What's its exact job regarding estrogen?
So estrogen gets processed or conjugated in the liver, basically packaged up so it can be excreted from the body, usually through bile. It's marked for removal. But when this packaged estrogen reaches the gut, beta-glucuronidase performs this critical step. It deconjugates it, it unpacks it. This frees up the estrogen, allowing it to be reabsorbed through the intestinal wall back into your bloodstream. This recycling system is key in regulating how much active estrogen stays circulating in your body.
So it's not just recycling, it's actually a conservation mechanism, keeping hold of what you have.
Exactly. And why this becomes so incredibly critical during menopause is that as your ovarian estrogen production drops, sometimes by 80% or even more.
Wow, that much?
Yeah, it can be a dramatic drop. This natural recycling system becomes a vital backup plan, maintaining even a baseline level of hormonal activity just enough to keep tissues healthy. Moods somewhat stable often depends heavily on how well your estrobolome is doing its job.
Okay, so what happens when that system isn't working properly, when it breaks down?
Well, when you get dysbiosis, which means an imbalance, maybe reduced diversity, or just the wrong kinds of bacteria taking over, has a couple of major consequences. First, research actually shows that the hormonal shift of menopause itself can negatively change the gut microbiome. It can reduce diversity, and its composition can start to look more like a male microbiome, which is typically less efficient at this estrogen recycling.
Interesting.
Second, sometimes dysbiosis can lead to an overproduction of beta-glucuronidase, which means too much estrogen gets reabsorbed. This can actually contribute to estrogen-dominant symptoms for some women, especially in perimenopause.
Ah, so that's key. The gut balance dictates whether you're conserving too much or, more likely in menopause, too little active estrogen.
Precisely. And in the menopausal context, when the gut isn't recycling efficiently because of poor diversity or function, that lack of conservation contributes directly to so many common complaints. Things like poor metabolic function, leading to weight gain, especially around the middle, chronic bloating, reduced energy, persistent mood issues that just don't seem to respond to anything else. It means we absolutely have to shift from just soothing symptoms to really rebuilding the system, using specific dietary allies.
Okay, let's start with one you hear about a lot, but maybe not in this context. Flaxseed. You called it a dual-action powerhouse.
It really is a system builder, not just a supplement. So yes, it provides lignans. Those are well-known phytoestrogens plant compounds that can gently bind to estrogen receptors, offering some mild hormonal support. But just as important, flaxseed is incredibly rich in soluble fiber, which acts as a powerful prebiotic. This is the food source, the fuel for those beneficial gut bacteria we need.
And the detail from the sources here was really specific. The preparation method matters a lot.
It absolutely does. To get the maximum benefit for both the hormones and the microbiome, you have to grind the flaxseed fresh. Daily. Whole flax seeds, they mostly just pass right through you. Your body and your gut microbes can't access the lignans or the fiber effectively. Grinding unlocks everything.
Okay, next up, getting a direct infusion of beneficial bacteria through fermented foods. You stress these need to be a daily ritual.
Consistency is everything here. Small amounts, but daily. Introduce staples like unsweetened live culture yogurt or kefir if you tolerate dairy, of course. High-quality sauerkraut, kimchi, maybe even just a spoonful of miso and some broth, natto if you're adventurous. These give you a direct, diverse dose of beneficial probiotics. They actively support and help diversify that crucial estrobolome.
And finally, let's connect back to something we mentioned earlier, those herbal teas like red clover. You said they connect to gut health via the polyphenol pathway. This really shows how interconnected these pillars are.
Yeah, as a great example, we often think of polyphenols just as antioxidants, right? But their role as potent, selective prebiotics is just as vital. They aren't just passive. They actively nourish specific beneficial bacteria strains in your gut, like Akkermansia mucinifila, which is crucial for maintaining a healthy gut lining. So by consciously bringing in polyphenol-rich foods and teas, you're strengthening that entire gut hormone axis from the inside.
The big takeaway here for you, the listener, is that by maybe day 5 of really integrating these changes, combining that digital sunset with these gut allies, the benefits start to compound. It's not just feeling calmer. It's often described as an internal lightness, a clarity. That's a sign your estrobolome is starting to thrive and support your new hormonal reality.
All right, so we've got the external strategy, the digital detox, and the internal strategy, the microbiome makeover. Now we need to bridge that gap. How do we connect these changes we're making to actual physiological results? So what does this all mean for tracking progress objectively day by day? And our pillar 3,
Heart Rate Variability, HRV, your real-time, totally unbiased window into your nervous system's resilience.
HRV has definitely gone mainstream, hasn't it? Thanks to all the smartwatches and trackers. But we really need to define it precisely, because it often gets mixed up with just plain old heart rate.
Yeah, super important distinction. HRV is not your heart rate, which is just beats per minute. HRV is the tiny variation in time, measured in milliseconds, between each individual heartbeat. See, a healthy heart doesn't beat like a rigid clock pendulum. It's constantly speeding up slightly, slowing down slightly, based on signals from everywhere, your environment, your gut, your brain.
And that variation, that fluctuation, tells the whole story.
Yeah.
A higher HRV, that's what you're aiming for. It signals a resilient, adaptable nervous system. It means your parasympathetic system, rest and digest, has strong influence. You can shift easily between stress and relaxation. On the flip side, a consistently low HRV, that's the red flag. It points to chronic stress, sympathetic dominance, that fight or flight system being stuck on. Your body's basically in a state of high alert and not recovering well.
And the connection to menopause here really validates what so many women feel subjectively, doesn't it? That drop in estrogen is directly physically linked to reduced HRV in study after study.
It shows up exactly like that classic menopausal anxiety feels. Low HRV readings correlate strongly with that feeling of being wired but tired. Racing thoughts, maybe heart palpitations that aren't actually a heart problem, but a sign of nervous system distress. That low HRV number is your body's objective physiological SOS signal. It confirms those feelings aren't all in your head. They're rooted in measurable nervous system dysregulation.
So this objective data point completely reframes the whole wellness effort, right? When we talk about using supplements or yoga or the digital detox we just discussed, at its core, it's all basically an HRV optimization protocol. We're consciously trying to increase that variability number as proof our changes are landing physiologically.
It moves you way beyond just hoping things are working. You're not just hoping that meditation helped or that the kimchi is doing something. You can actually see the effects, sometimes acute, sometimes chronic over time, on your nervous system's resilience. Right there in the data. That provides a level of certainty, which is incredibly motivating to keep going with those changes.
Okay, so how do we actually use this data? Make the device a helpful guide, not just another source of stress.
Well, you start simple. Get a baseline measurement. On day 0, before you start making big changes, use your tracker to get a reliable morning HRV reading. Right when you wake up, ideally. That's your personal benchmark. Everything gets measured against that starting point.
And then becomes part of that daily tracking.
Yeah, exactly. Incorporate daily check-ins. Log your morning HRV right alongside the symptoms you're tracking in that weekly wheel we talked about. This is where you spot the direct connections. You start asking, did my HRV go up after I was really strict about the 90-minute rule last night? Did that new adaptogen blend actually improve my recovery score overnight? Seeing that higher HRV confirms your actions are having a measurable effect. And the sources also point to an immediate way to boost HRV, at least temporarily, for acute stress. Specific breathing techniques, sometimes called breath walk ballet, or more commonly resonant breathing.
Okay, let's detail this. Because it works by directly stimulating the vagus nerve, right? Which is like the main highway for the parasympathetic calm down system.
Precisely. This is where it gets really physiological.
Yeah.
The vagus nerve acts like the brake pedal for your nervous system. By consciously controlling the pace and depth of your breath, you physically stimulate this nerve. The specific cadence recommended most often is a 4-count inhale and a 6-count exhale.
Longer exhale is key.
Yes, that longer exhale is the crucial part. It signals safety to your brainstem, stimulates the vagus nerve, and immediately helps push that internal calm button. This kind of resonant breathing has been shown again and again to temporarily increase HRV and interrupt feelings of acute anxiety almost immediately.
So it's a two-pronged approach then. You build those foundational habits, the detox, the gut support that hopefully raise your baseline HRV over weeks and months. And then you have these instant tools like the 46 breaths, scientifically validated, to manage the stress dips that inevitably happen day to day. That feels like a really comprehensive, powerful strategy.
It's really important for you, the listener, to see your own personal journey within this much bigger global shift that's happening. When you choose this kind of holistic, data-driven approach, you're actually part of a fundamental change in how we even perceive menopause. And the market reflects this. The menopause wellness market is it's exploding right now. Exploding how? Give us a sense of the scale of this change, this reframing.
The numbers are pretty staggering, actually. We're looking at growth from around $19 billion globally in 2024 to a projected $31 billion by 2032. That's huge.
Wow.
And what that dollar figure really signals is a massive cultural and even medical shift.
Yeah.
Menopause is moving away from being seen only as a medical condition needing fixing, usually with pharmaceuticals, and towards being recognized as a natural life stage, one that deserves comprehensive systemic support, maybe even celebration.
And this market boom directly validates the kind of holistic approach we've been digging into today, right? The trends predicted for 2026 seem to line up perfectly with our three pillars, starting with this huge consumer demand for what's being called the rise of the phyto powerhouse.
Absolutely. This trend is all about consumers actively seeking tailored, plant-based nutritional support, specifically focused on those key menopausal challenges. Balancing hormones, yes, but also supporting skin health and integrity, and crucially, maintaining bone density. We're seeing a real focus on highly specific, targeted plant ingredients that have solid clinical evidence behind them.
Like what? What kind of specific ingredients are starting to lead the pack, maybe beyond the ones everyone knows?
Siberian rhubarb extract is getting a lot of attention. Clinical sources mention really impressive results like 60 to 90% relief from frequent hot flashes for many women. That points to some powerful hormonal modulating effects. Then you see things like HMR lignin, which is basically a purified, concentrated extract from flaxseed.
Back to flaxseed.
Exactly. The fact that the market is now isolating and concentrating that specific phytoestrogen component just reinforces the value of flaxseed's dual power, the lignins and the fiber that we talked about for the estrobolome. And yeah, black cohosh is still a staple, but now you often see it formulated with other synergistic ingredients.
Which leads perfectly into the next big market trend, synergy over single solutions. The market is finally catching up to the idea that the body's an interconnected system.
Totally. Consumers are getting savvier. They're demanding solutions that match the complexity of their own experience. So we're shifting away from just taking one pill for one symptom, like a hot flash, and moving towards these more comprehensive stacks or systems, formulations designed to address the interconnected nature of it all, tackling multiple systems at once.
Can you give an example? How does a synergistic stack work in practice for, say, sleep and anxiety?
Sure. A typical stack aimed at menopausal sleep and anxiety wouldn't just throw melatonin in there. It would likely combine things like magnesium glycinate, great for muscle relaxation and calming the nervous system. Probably a good dose of an adaptogen like ashwagandha to help lower that stress response and baseline cortisol. Maybe specific B vitamins, because they're crucial for adrenal function and making neurotransmitters. This whole approach really validates the philosophy we've discussed. You support the nervous system, improve HRV. You balance the gut, support the estrobolome, and that helps stabilize hormones. It all works together.
Okay, and finally, let's touch on tech for good, because we spent the first section talking about digital detox. But technology itself isn't necessarily the villain here, is it, if used intentionally?
It's all about intentionality and balance. Yes, the detox is fundamental for calming the nervous system baseline, but at the same time, digital health tools, things like sophisticated symptom tracking apps, online communities providing support, biofeedback devices, guided breathing apps, these are showing huge promise. They help demystify the process, provide objective data like HRV and sleep scores, build community connection. They empower women to understand their own bodies and patterns better than ever before. Technology, when used thoughtfully, can absolutely be a tool for empowerment here.
So, by choosing this kind of holistic, empowered, data-informed path, you're not just a passive consumer waiting for a fix in this booming market. You're actually helping to shape the future of menopause care. You're voting with your attention and your choices for systemic wisdom, for long-term resilience, instead of just fear or quick, isolated fixes.
That really is the bottom line. You're actively choosing to architect your own resilience. And this brings us right to a final thought, a provocative one maybe. Building directly on that power of objective data we hit on in Section 3. Something for you to think about after this. We established that tracking something like HRV turns that subjective feeling of, I feel stressed, into objective physiological data. So consider this. How might bringing that data, your data, fundamentally change the conversation you have with your doctor, your primary care provider, your gynecologist? Imagine going in and instead of just saying, look, I feel overwhelmed, I'm incredibly anxious, you could also say, and here's my HRV data from the last month, showing consistent sympathetic dominance, a really low reading indicating poor nervous system resilience. What systemic factors, hormonal, environmental, gut-related, could be driving this quantifiable physiological state? And what's our strategy? It shifts the dialogue, doesn't it? From just describing a symptom to presenting objective data that demands a systemic investigation. It's a powerful shift. Hashtag take out Schrocksack.
That is a powerful final thought, transforming subjective feelings into objective, actionable data points. Okay, let's quickly recap the core takeaways from this deep dive into the menopause renaissance. We covered those 3 essential shifts. First, implementing the digital sunset protocol to lower that chronic cortisol and calm your nervous system. Second, understanding and actively supporting your estrobolome, your gut's role in hormone balance, using allies like fresh ground flax and daily fermented foods. And third, utilizing HRV as your personal objective guide to track nervous system resilience and hormonal harmony.
Remember, start small. Measure the impact for yourself and build the customized system that actually works for you, guided by your own data, not just guesswork.
So our challenge to you right now is simple. Pick one thing. Apply one of these science-backed protocols right away. Maybe start tonight with that 90-minute rule before bed. Or commit right now to adding that daily spoonful of sauerkraut or yogurt. Just start. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. If this conversation helped you connect the dots and feel more empowered to apply this information, please make sure you subscribe or follow the channel. We look forward to guiding you through our next set of sources, continuing to bring you synthesized knowledge with clarity and depth. We'll see you next time.